Hey there, Michael. How's your day going?
My day is going very well. How about yourself?
My day is also going very well. Um, I would like to ask you questions about the burial, but first I'm curious about which character's eyes you saw the script through when you were writing it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think initially it's Brian, the brother who kind of gets dragged in by his other brother into this like terrible situation. Um, I definitely think the first half is through his eyes. And then I think it kind of pivots to Molly by the end. I've always enjoyed movies that kind of like switch protagonists, kind of like very subtly throughout. I always think about Alien. When you rewatch it, you realize Ripley's like kind of a side character until the very end of the movie. So I've always
Yeah,
enjoyed that like switch up, but it's definitely Brian at first, and then it kind of pivots, I would say, to Molly by the end.
cool. When did you start working on this project? Like initially, like script wise?
The script was like July of 2018, give or take, around there. It was written in July, and then it would start filming that next year, actually.
And then when did you guys film the movie?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
When and where did you guys film the movie at?
It was in Wrightwood, California, just kind of like on the way to Big Bear, if anyone's familiar with the area. But yeah, that's where the cabin was and where we filmed all the interiors.
Oh yeah. So do you have a uh any different titles that were gonna be used for the movie before you switched them up?
Not really. I will say the burial, I usually just title stuff to get going. I don't want to get too hung up on a title when I'm writing. And I hate having like untitled at the top. So the burial initially, I wouldn't call it a placeholder, but it was like, let's just get this thing titled and start writing it. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, I like it. I like simple titles. I'm always a fan of like Jordan Peele's titles, the one word.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I have nothing against the blank, I kind of do like the simplicity of it. And then there was a day or two where I was like, let's see if we can come up with something a little bit more interesting potentially. And I just couldn't really get it. So I just kind of stuck with the burial, and then we started singing at the festivals, and I'm like, I guess it's called the burial. I guess we're just gonna stick with it. But I
Uh
like the title, yeah.
is this the first movie that you have done, or do you have a history?
I'd done like shorts in college, but this is the first feature. I'd written other features like on a spec script level, that stuff that like I probably couldn't make unless I had a couple $1 million.
But
Um,
this is the first one
this is the first.
you're
Yeah.
helming.
Yeah.
So you wrote the script. Did you also direct the movie?
Yeah, I directed it.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So, which of those hats would you say that you enjoyed more? Writing it or directing your vision?
You know, I always do kind of consider myself more of a writer. Um, I really directed because, you quickly realize the best way to get your stuff made is you make it yourself, you know. And I love directing, and I'm always obsessed with other directors and seeing what they do with the camera. But I do kind of see myself as a writer first, really nailing that part of the filmmaking process down. And then directing is like its own unique set of challenges that I'm still learning a lot about. And this is my first feature. I'm planning my second. But I have been writing a lot longer, and I've always been kind of more attracted to that part of the process.
Are you always going to stick within the horror realm, or do you think you're gonna switch it up a little bit?
I mean, I love horror. It's always been my preferred genre. I think for the time being, I am going to kind of stay in the horror realm. Um, but there is some wiggle room. I mean, there's always that constant debate. What's a thriller? What's a horror? People get kind of offended if you call what they see as a horror film a thriller. Um, but I'm probably going to stay within that genre for sure. I would love to do an action movie at some point. Um, but that would probably take a little bit more resources, to say the least,
Yeah, fight
than horror.
coordinator.
Yeah.
Um, so with the new movie that you said you're working on, can you talk about that at all?
A little bit. I mean, it's still like really early, like we're in pre-production. I'm still kind of polishing the script. But it will be about like ghost hunters, like the classic, ghost adventures type of scenario. But I am trying to find like my own unique spin on it, because I've seen a lot of movies where it's about ghost hunters and it's usually like the episode that was real, and those are great. There's tons of them I really like, but I am kind of trying to find my own little unique spin on it. But I will deal with ghost hunters kind of reckoning with their past and like their flagrant disrespect for the afterlife.
That's cool. So that gives me a question actually about the burial. Um, when you started writing in 2018, how long had you been working, like in your mind, on that specific story?
This one happened real fast. I kind of had a window of time where I'm like, if I'm gonna make a movie on my own, it has to be now. Like I have a few months where I can really dedicate myself to it. So it kind of came honestly, like it's not an exaggeration, like over a night. I sat down and I was like, let me really think what I could write, what is achievable with like the resources that I have. And at that time, I was really into like classic morality horror stories like Twilight Zone, Tales from the Crypt, Creep Show. And so that was kind of my leaping off point, like what's kind of a classic sort of setup for a story, you know? And even like I Know What You Did Last Summer was kind of like in that arena as well. So that's kind of where I started. What would happen if you help kind of cover up a crime of some sort, and what could the consequences of that be? Um, Very simple at first, and then I started thinking about the characters. Um, I knew I wanted to make it about siblings, brothers, and then I also thought I would like to bring a third character in who is less connected to the drama at hand and is sort of by the end again like the audience surrogate, the person that's kind of their hands are kind of clean of everything that's going on, and how are they going to react to everything that's happening.
So, you had brought up the I Know What You Did Last Summer. I don't know if you know, but they're bringing it back. I guess
Yeah,
the new one is 10 years later or something.
yeah, I'm excited. I just watched the original like last week, and then the day after that was announced, I was like, oh, I like the first two. I'm excited to see a proper third one.
So you probably get a lot of the same questions when you're in these interviews. So I'm curious, what is there that you would like to share about the film that people don't ask you or you don't get to say much?
The thing I really was happy with how it turned out was like the music for the movie. I composed, I would say about 50-50. I did a lot of the soundscape stuff, some of the common themes you hear throughout. Like there's a song that kind of plays whenever the brothers are having like their big moments together. Um, but I knew I wanted a score that would kind of stick out. So a friend of mine, Ashley, has this really great, like industrial sounding music that you wouldn't really think about fitting into like a woodsy cabin in the woods type of movie. And so I love his music. And I think it turned out really cool to kind of have these weird kind of industrial clinging and clanging sounds with like this great natural setting that's in. Um, we spent a lot of time on the music. I can work a keyboard a little bit, um, but I'm glad Ashley's music's in there too because it's really fantastic.
That's cool. So, as far as the cast and the crew go, are any of those people that you brought onto your follow-up film or that you would consider?
I mean, I would definitely consider. It's a little too early for casting for that. Um, the cast might be more in the teen range for this next one, or around there, but I would love to get them involved somehow. But right now, it's a little like we're still kind of figuring out the characters and the script.
And so those are the only two projects. Is there anything else that you wanted to plug?
No, I mean that's it. I mean, the burial is my first big entrance, and I'm trying to get this second one going, so that if people like the burial, there's a second one coming pretty soon after.
Okay, awesome. Um, I think that's pretty much all that I have then. Was there anything, any last social media that you'd like to put out there, people to follow you at?
Oh yeah, I mean, I have a Twitter. I try to be more active, especially lately on there. It's at magic_Mike 777. I swear I came up with that name before the movie came out. That's been my handle. I promise. That's been my handle for a
I
while.
believe you. I believe you.
And the
I
movie came
believe
out.
you.
Yeah, stole my thunder. But that's my main social media is that Twitter account.
All right, brother. Well, it's been great talking to you and learning a little bit more about the movie. So I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, of course. Thank you for having me.
Mhm.